Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me for part two of our journey through the pelvic stabilizers. So maybe you've been practicing part one and kind of building that strength through the lateral rotators and the glutes, or maybe you're putting part one, part two, and part three together into one big sequence. But we're going to start to grow ourselves a little bit further away from the floor here. And let's grab our props, right? We're going to have a blanket. I like to have something underneath me. And we're going to have two blocks. I am seated on one of these blocks. So let's go ahead and gather our props. And let's continue on this journey to find a little more stability and balance in our daily activities. So dropping in a little bit more to building some leg strength. All right, let's go ahead and get started on our back. So I'm going to take my block out. We're going to come all the way down onto the back body here, and we'll bring the knees in towards the chest. Take your hands to your knees, and let's start to do some mixer knees, which means one knee is moving clockwise and the other knee is moving counterclockwise. And we are really going to be playing in this part too, in moving the leg in all of its glorious directions. So really this is about finding that range of motion in the hip socket. So as we're circling here, we're lubricating the hip joint. We're kind of moving our own WD-40 around the acetabulum, right? The hip socket. We're getting all of the synovial fluid kind of moving around here. Take just another moment and maybe change your directions a couple of times and getting it all warmed up and lubricated. And then we're going to meet each other with these knees back in towards the chest. And we're going to take our hands and sandwich our hands between our hamstrings and our calves here. And then from this place, let's let these knees both go out wide. We'll do a little bit of stretching here for the inner thigh. You're going to extend your left leg all the way out to the left. Nice big stretch for the hamstrings back there. And just like we did in part one, we're going to draw some circles with the ankle, really mobilizing the joint and also kind of waking up again those shins, the calves, the peroneal muscles, all the muscles that are responsible for helping us be bipedal, right? Helping us navigate uneven terrain. So wake those muscles up. And then let's bring this foot in and let's go over to the other side. Right leg goes out. Nice big stretch. Enjoy some circles here. Right? Maybe we take another moment or two. And then from this place, we're going to bring this foot all the way back in. You're going to bring your knees back in towards your chest, and we'll let both of these feet go back to the earth. So now we've got a little bit of warmth coming in here. Let's go ahead and roll ourselves over to the right or the left. Press through your hands. Start to bring yourself just a little bit further away from the floor. We'll spin this around, and we're going to come into that quadruped position, right? Our tabletop. So this is the point where I like to pause, fold my blanket back so that I have blanket, extra padding underneath my knees, but we're definitely going to have our feet and our hands to the sticky mat. And then from this place, let's drop this down to our forearms. Take a moment to reach across to see that your elbows are underneath your shoulders so that we are stacking on the strength of the upper arm bone. That helps us build bone density. So even though we're focusing in this three-part series on pelvic stability, leg strength, why not get a little upper body strength at the same time? So let's release these forearms. Hands are to the floor, kind of like a sphinx here. And we're going to take this left leg back, and you're going to come to the ball mounds of your left foot. We're going to do a little more stretching here, activating your feet. Let's start to glide forward and back. So stretching calf, maybe thinking about stretching the area around the Achilles. And let's see if we can really kind of mobilize the fascia, the connective tissue in our feet. So giving ourselves a nice little toe stretch, right? Feet are really part and parcel to knee health, right? So if we've got kind of chronic achiness in the knees or pain in the knees, one way we might start to investigate that is by giving a little more movement into our feet. All right, let's lower the left knee and let's switch sides. We're going to go over to the right. And as you're gliding forward and back, if you notice that these elbows start to go out a little bit wider, walk them back in so they're underneath the shoulders. So again, building some bone density around that shoulder joint as we activate a little more space into the legs here. And then let's go ahead and pause, and you can drop that right knee down to the floor to meet your left, and we'll start to bring this back up to our hands. So we're going to come into that shape that we refer to as downward facing dog. You're going to tuck both sets of your toes. Take a look at these hands. Spread your fingers really, really bright. And let's make sure we're really rooting the ball mound of the index finger. So we're taking some of our extra weight off of the wrist. So really plant down through all four corners of your hands. Toes are tucked, and from here, we're going to lift these hips up and back, and that's a little deeper stretch into those calves, that area of your Achilles, your feet, your hamstrings. So it might be nice here for a moment or two to just kind of pedal, right? Alternate, shift your hips side to side, right? Move your downward facing dog in a way that feels joyful in your body. And then from this place, we're going to pause, and we're going to start to walk our feet to our hands. So keep your knees as bent as you need to start to get your feet all the way towards the top of the mat. And we've got our blocks here on their tall settings. So let's grab those blocks. Take your hands to your blocks. And let's come into this position that I like to refer to as your stilted tabletop, right? We were in a tabletop position, hands and knees. We're in that same shape. We're just a little further away from the floor. So hence the stilted tabletop. And we're really going to start to come back into this strengthening for these muscles around the pelvis, right? Around the hip joint, primarily your lateral rotators and your glutes. You met them in part one of this series. So we're going to shift our weight to the right foot, and you're going to shift your hips. So you're hovering this left foot just about an inch up off the earth, and you could do a little swing forward and back, right? I like to refer to this as our free range movement, just kind of swinging this leg forward and back, right? That is a pretty familiar movement pattern for our bodies. All right, go ahead and bring it back so it's hovering just about an inch up off the earth. And we're going to go into what we call abduction, which means you're taking your left leg out to the left. All right, this is a little less familiar, so you might notice we have to work a little bit harder. Bring your leg back behind you, and then bring it back towards the floor, but let's not let it land. Let's do that again. Let's go out to the side, functional movement here. And then bring your leg back behind you towards the earth, but don't let it land. We're going to try this one more time. Go out to the side, back behind. And this time, as your leg comes down, you're going to cross this left leg behind your right. And we'll find a really big bend to the right knee. And you'll inchworm your left toes forward. So your pinky toes meet up. They're having a pinky toe reunion. And you can walk your blocks over. So you're framing your 2 feet. And we're going to find a nice big in-breath. And on your exhale, let's bend these elbows, starting to come into a fold. That is a very big stretch for the outer hips. So again, if you've been doing your clamshells, kind of building that strength in the glutes and in the lateral rotators, this is a really nice counter pose, right? Let's see if we can drop the crown of the head. Ooh, look back towards those legs. Can we let it all go, right? Hips hold a lot of tension, a lot of emotion. So maybe a nice big in-breath and a nice big out-breath. We're going to pause here for a couple more rounds of breath, being with all that is, maybe coming back to our mantra, right? That it's just a sensation. It's just a sensation. It will pass. All right, let's press hands into the blocks. Come back into our halfway lift. And once you're in your halfway lift, let's uncross these legs. Come back to stand on 2 feet. You might walk these blocks back over, right? So you're in your nice bipedal or quadruped. We're not quite bipedal, quadruped position. And we're going to be switching sides. So let's take our weight to the left foot. Shift your hips so right foot is hovering above the floor about an inch. And let's come back to this forward and back swinging, right? This is our sagittal plane of movement. Our body is very familiar with this. It's like riding a bike or walking. We're moving forward and back. But our hip is a ball and socket joint, right? It was made to go in many different directions. We just don't do them very often. So it takes a little more work. All right, here we go. We're going to go out to the side. See how that is. And then back behind and towards the earth, but don't let it land. We're going to do that again. Go out to the side, back behind, towards the earth, but don't let it land. One more time. Go out to the side, back behind. And this time, as that right leg comes down, you're crossing it behind the left. Remember, we're going to find a really big bend to that left knee. You're going to inchworm those right toes forward. Pinky toes are so excited to see each other. Walk your blocks back over so you're framing those feet. Let's see what's here with us and this outer hip on the right side. So nice big in-breath. And on your exhale, let's bend the elbows, starting to take ourselves into that fold. I want you to notice where your gaze is right now. And if you're gazing at the floor between those 2 blocks, I'm going to tell you right now that that's your body's way of coming out of the stretch. So let's see if we can really drop the crown of the head. You're looking back towards those legs. And we really want to activate our access to our breath here. So let's do this all together. Nice big inhale. Nice big open mouth exhale. We're going to pause for another couple of rounds of breath. And then press hands back into your blocks for that halfway lift. And from here, we'll uncross these legs. We'll come back to stand on 2 feet. Go ahead and walk your blocks over so they're back underneath your shoulders. We're going to find a little bend to these knees here. You're going to bring your hands to your hips. And then in one movement, we're going to stand all the way up. Yes, you got it. And before we take this into our next exercise, we're going to do a little more stretching for your feet. So I still have my blanket to the mat. I'm going to back up here a little bit so I'm a little bit closer to my blanket. And then from here, let's keep your right foot to the floor. Let's keep the hands to the hips. Take the left leg back and come to the top of your toes. Looks like this. And then from here, we're going to start to circle around the top of the feet, right? This is a pretty intense sensation, especially if you've never done this before. So let's see if we can, kind of soften and find some amenability to this shape, right? Find some friendship with the shape. See if we can soften to the shape, allow for it. Maybe a good word is befriend. Circle the other way. And then circle again, changing directions. And we're going to do this one more time, change directions. And then let's come back to stand on 2 feet. And you're going to release these hands to your side body for that steady, stable mountain pose, that bipedal position that we are all so familiar with. And if it is comfortable for you, an invitation here to bring a close to your eyes. Now, if that's not comfortable, maybe we just take a soft gaze towards the floor. But I want you to notice your left leg in comparison to your right leg. We're back to this idea of noticing. And that's all about finding those neuro pathways, right? It's about bringing the mind back into the body. And that is one way that we access our balance and stability. So notice what there is to notice. There's no right or wrong way to do this. And then hands come back to your hips. Open your eyes if they're closed. And let's do this one more time, right? You're extending right leg back. We're on the tops of the feet. And we're going to draw these circles, moving one direction. And every once in a while, changing directions. We keep the hands to the hips because, we're really kind of balancing on one leg right now. Even though we've got those toes to the earth, they're not load bearing. And so we are balancing, and hands to our hips, that helps us find some stability. Take another couple of moments circling this way, circling that way, this and that. And then let's come back to stand on 2 feet. And again, once those 2 feet touch the earth, maybe come into that steady, stable standing position. Feel all that circulation in your feet, right? All that stability. It's almost like we've just woken up these feet. They're touching the earth in a more present sort of way. All right, if eyes are closed, go ahead and open your eyes. And we are going to take this blanket off of your mat if it's still there. And we're going to grab these blocks and we're going to do one more standing balance. And this is all about finding some isometric contraction for the entire standing leg. So isometric contraction means that your muscles are hugging to the bone, and those are really good contraction for stabilizing, right? So we're going to play with that right now. We're going to use these 2 blocks. So one block on its low flat setting, and then the other block goes right behind it. And we're going to find just about an inch space between your 2 blocks. All right, from here, you're going to step, let's say we're going to step the right foot up. So let's see if we can get the ball mound of your right foot on the front block, heel to the back block, and the arch of your foot is spanning the space between the 2 blocks. That helps us lift the arches of our feet. And then you're going to come up to this standing position, and we are going to bring these hands or your peace fingers back to your hip points. All right, from here, let's see if we can stabilize the pelvis. So we're not tipping, right? We're not going contrapposto, but we're going to keep this pelvis nice and level. And then let's play with swinging this leg forward and back. Okay, this is challenging, especially if we've never done it before. So you might need to tap your toes down, right? Let's let go of needing to do this perfectly and tap into our willingness to play, right? Meanwhile, as we're swinging this leg, the standing leg is strengthening, obviously, right? We've got these muscles kind of hugging to the bone. So let's see if we can kind of lean into this. And maybe we start to find some cross crawl because that's good for the brain, good for the nervous system, right? So as the left leg goes forward, the right arm goes forward, and we're kind of swinging forward and back. I have done this many times, so my balance is pretty good, right? But you may be finding that the balance is challenging here. Let's not get frustrated, right? Let's just tap down when we need to tap down and come back to it, right? Eventually, you're going to have the strength to be able to stay here a little bit longer and play, right? If we've got some pretty good stability and balance, you could try crossing the midline. That gets a lot more challenging. All right, wherever it is that you are, maybe we come back to dangling. And then let's start to slow this movement and see if we can just pause here, keeping this pelvis level, but not tapping those toes down. And we're going to come back into our capacity to be with all that is, to remind ourselves it's just a sensation. This is the sensation of isometric contraction on our standing leg, and this is going to give us better balance and stability in our daily activities. All right. Step off the block. Maybe take a nice big sigh as these 2 feet touch the earth. You might feel like you want to kind of shake that off. I don't blame you. Shake it off. And then let's take it over to the other side. Maybe you're shaking it off as you're walking it over to the other side, right? We've got 2 legs, so we're going to do 2 sides. So let's take the left foot up. Again, ball mounts to the front, heel to the back, and maybe a little bit of space between the blocks to help us lift the arches of the feet. Peace fingers back to the hip points. And let's play with going forward and back. Now, if you've done part 1 of this series, right, you noticed when we were doing clamshells that one side was stronger than the other. That might be showing up here again. You might have a little more stability on one side versus the other. That doesn't mean we only do one side. So maybe you're noticing, hey, I think I got this, right? You can start to release these arms and you can swing, or maybe you're surprised that this side is a little more challenging. So we're going to breathe. We're going to notice. We're going to be okay with all that is arising. If you've got some stability and balance here, maybe we play with crossing the midline. That is a lot harder for the brain. So tap it down when you need to tap it down, and then come back to that forward and back movement. Okay, now you know we're going to slow this down until you are just hovering. And know that nothing lasts forever, and that this too will pass. Can we allow this standing left leg to also find its capacity, right? To find its strength. If you're noticing an interesting sensation, that is the sensation of isometric contraction. All right, step off the block. Woo! Again, maybe as those 2 feet touch the earth, there's a big sigh. It's a good way of resetting the nervous system. We are done with these blocks, so let's take them off of your mat, put them off to the side. And I'm going to stay facing you. You might turn to face the long edge of your mat, and we'll take these legs just a little bit wider. We're going to take a moment to kind of shake this off. So this is what I like to call golfer's swing. You're going to swing the arms in one direction and then swing the arms in the other. Notice I'm not keeping both of my feet glued to the floor. So as I twist to one direction, the opposite foot taps the toes. And we might just take these hands and kind of give ourselves a little palpation to the muscles of the glutes. and the lateral rotators, right? Get a little palpation, a little love smack. Let's shake it out here. And then from this place, we're going to slow that roll. We're going to come back to stand on 2 feet. Good old bipedal. Remember, we did have to learn at some point how to stand on 2 feet. So maybe balancing on the blocks is challenging, but with some willingness to play, right, we can find that strength. So I'm going to leave us here actually in this standing position and hope to see you in part 3. All right, salud. Here's to our health.